Welcome to Guiding Echoes, the show that loves to inspire and empower you to awaken your intuitive abilities and develop your psychic skills. I'm your host, Nicole Antoinette. Join me as we dive into exciting topics such as spirit communication, energy healing, intuition, consciousness, and so much more. The fun begins right now. That's right. The fun begins right now. Hey there, everyone. My name is Nicole Antoinette, and I am your host on this new show on the UPRN network. So I'm really excited to be here today. And since this was my first show on this network, I wanted to go ahead and just take a moment to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about who I am, what I do, what you can expect from the show in the future. And of course, I also want to open up the platform so you can ask me some questions. And I just hope that today is going to be a lot of fun. Also, for those of you who are joining me through my YouTube channel, I want to invite you to go check out and subscribe to International Radio Network. They have a lot of amazing shows. That's where they host many of the shows from the UPRN network. And following this show is a fantastic show by the crew at Discover Paranormal. They are asking the question, are you psychic? So I'm sure that they are going to have some fascinating insight for you. So, again, my name is Nicole Antoinette. So excited to be here with you today. I am a psychic medium, tarot card reader, angel channeler, Reiki practitioner, energy healer, really kind of the jack of all trades. So, I'm sure that there are plenty of spiritual practices that I have yet to put my hands in, but there's actually a lot that I've kind of already tried. And I got to tell you, I'm kind of obsessed with this whole spiritual psychic stuff. It's kind of my jam. So I very much enjoy it. So the way that I found out that I was psychic is a little outside of the norm. Now, as a child, I was sensitive. I was very claircognizant and clairsentient, but because I grew up in a very oppressive religious household, I wasn't really allowed to talk about the different psychic experiences I was having. My parents were very abusive, they were very strict, and we were not allowed to have any interests or curiosity regarding any type of spiritual beliefs that did not fit within their brand of religiosity. We'll call it that. I always call it Christianity, but the more I actually interact with Christians, I realize, I think what my parents did, I don't think that's really Christianity. I think they just kind of created their own cult. And so, maybe I'll just start calling it that. Yeah, I grew up in a cult. No big deal. Everyone does it, right? Everyone does it. So I grew up not really understanding what was happening to me. And when I could sense different spirits or when I had an empathic experience, there wasn't really anyone I could speak to about it. So I didn't understand what was going on. And just kind of, stumbled through life trying to figure it out in most of my 20s. And it was actually in my 30s where I came across tarot. And so, what ended up happening there was one year I decided to decorate my home for Halloween. Now, I am a huge fan of the Disneyland attraction, the Haunted Mansion. Love that ride. And I decided that I wanted to set up a seance scene in my front yard based on the seance scene in the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland. So, of course, I went to work making down a list of all the things I would need to make that happen. And one of the things that I needed was a deck of tarot cards. Of course, I needed a crystal ball too, but when I looked at the prices of crystal balls, I was like, maybe I'll just get a fishbowl and put that upside down. Like, crystal balls are kind of expensive. So I started looking at tarot cards to see which ones would jump out at me and which ones I could use as decorations for the seance scene I wanted to put in my front yard. And I also wanted to be sure that the images weren't too scary. So when kids came up and they're looking at the cards, I didn't want to scare anyone. So I started looking through Amazon as one often does. By the way, happy Prime Day. I don't know about you, but I already made off with some good deals. So feeling pretty good about all the money I saved. So went on to Amazon, started scrolling through the different tarot decks that they had, and there was one that absolutely just jumped out at me. And it was $30, and I didn't want to pay that much for it because these were just going to be decorations, right? This was something I was going to use for just one day and probably never again. So I kept scrolling, kept looking for more cards, and that one deck just haunted me. I just kept going back to that one deck. So finally, put it on my wish list and tried to forget about it, but couldn't. It haunted me. I kept thinking about that deck. So finally, one night, I think it was like 1 or 2 in the morning, don't remember the exact time. I finally got up and I was like, fine. I begrudgingly went and ordered the deck because I just couldn't stop thinking about it. Ordered the deck, completely forgot about it. Now, this was before Amazon offered, next day shipping, 2 day shipping. You had to wait the usual like 5 to 7 days or whatever it was. So I ordered, went ahead, ordered the deck, totally forgot about it. It came in the mail. And of course I get this package and I'm like, what did I order from Amazon? I don't even remember ordering anything. Opened it up. I'm like, oh my God, it's my tarot cards. Got all excited. And the moment I held those cards in my hand, the moment I started looking through each of the beautiful images, I knew that I had to protect this tarot deck with my life. And I know that sounds like an exaggeration. It's really not. I really felt this need to protect them. I knew that I couldn't allow anything bad to happen to these cards. So instantly, I realized that I could not use them as decorations after all. Instantly, I was having these daydreams of, kids like sneezing on the cards or rain coming and ruining them or the wind blowing them off of the table and they're just like going out into the ether. And I was like, nope, can't have that. That's not going to happen. Not on my watch. So, went ahead and decided that I was going to learn how to read tarot instead because I mean, what else are you going to do with the deck of tarot cards, right? So I went online and ordered some tarot books and found a online class that took place in real life. It really was a workshop because it wasn't a pre-recorded course. It was an actual workshop. So you would show up with other people and read cards with them. So there was an instructor and there were different people that you could work with, and you would break off into little groups throughout the week and practice reading tarot with everyone. And it turned out that I had a natural knack for it. Every time people would ask me for a reading and I would lay down the cards, it was always accurate. When I was in that class, I kid you not, 100% accuracy, and I know that sounds off the charts, and it is. Um, I don't really have those same stats in real life. I'm probably hitting 85 to 90% accuracy in readings now. But it's different because when you're practicing and when you're in a group and when it's just for fun, I think it's easier to read because there's not a whole lot of pressure. But then once you go into more like doing this professional, there's a lot more pressure. At least for me. What about you guys? I know that there's some professional tarot card readers who are listening to this and also interacting with me in the chat. I would love to hear if you guys feel a little more anxious or more pressure when you're doing tarot for a client. Because whether it's a client or a friend, I still love it. I still have so much fun. But man, I get nervous because I'm like, I hope I don't get this wrong. I want everyone to walk away from a reading with me knowing that they got good information, right? And feeling, wow, that was really helpful. And oh my gosh, how did she know that? I don't know how she knew that. So that's when readings are the best, is when you give people information that they weren't, I want to say, weren't banking on. And by that I mean you tune into something that they didn't tell you and they're like, oh my gosh, there's no one that could have known that. So I have Lana Hussein agreed. So she feels the same way. And Freddie says, I get nervous with strangers too. Yeah, I get nervous with strangers. Yeah. And Michael is saying, those cards definitely called you. And he's got the laughy face emoji. Yeah, they really did. Oh, Jenks, they were seriously, they were haunting me. They would not let me sleep. Miranda says, my sister gave me a deck, but I don't do it professionally. But yes, I always try my best and I'm able to have good insight. I do it mostly for my family. See, and I think that's fantastic. Candace is asking, what deck was it? Candace, it's no longer in print. It's called the Wizard's Tarot. Since then, a lot of different decks called the Wizard's Tarot have come out, but I'll show you my new favorite Wizard's Tarot. So this one's also goes by the same name. This is not the original deck that I picked up, but it is amazing. So this is by Barbara Moore, and I'm gonna ruin this name, but I'm gonna try to say it anyway. Mieke Janssens, Mieke Janssens. So that is that's a new Wizard's Tarot that's printed by Llewellyn, but the original one, the one I was referring to, was by Corinne Kenner, I believe, and that is no longer in stock. It was also printed by Llewellyn, but you can still get the digital version through an app on your phone. So I found a cheat. I found a cheat. So Tammy says, I feel more pressure reading for a friend than clients because I'm afraid of adding my own influence to the reading. That's a concern that I think a lot of people have, because you have your own bias, right? You want things to work out for your friends, and when they come to you with this critical situation that they're in, and critical can be a variety of things for different people, right? It can be, oh my gosh, I have an opportunity for my dream to come true, and I'm flying to New York and I'm going to meet with these, band producers or whatever they are. Is it going to happen? And of course, you want to tell them, yes, absolutely. Or they may be coming to you because they're saying something like, I'm about to go to the doctor and I've been having these symptoms and I'm really afraid. And of course, in that situation, you want to say you're going to be fine. So yeah, I think the closer you are to the person, there sometimes can be more pressure to tell someone what they want to hear, because you don't want to strain the relationship, right? You don't want them to be upset with you if you tell them the truth and it's not what they want to hear. But I'm a people pleaser, so I actually I actually get really frustrated and a little frazzled, whether it's a friend or a stranger or those people who are kind of in between. So, but yeah, I think that we can all feel a different amount of pressure, just kind of based on our own personalities. I think that people who are more introverted and they place a lot of importance on their existing relationships. They're going to be really afraid to get those readings wrong or to say the wrong thing, as opposed to if they work with someone they don't know. Obviously, they still care about the person that they're reading for, but the stakes don't feel quite as high. Whereas I think people who are maybe more extroverted, and and want everyone to love them, they can put a lot of pressure on themselves when it comes to both, but maybe a little bit more when it comes to strangers, because I think people who are extrovert or maybe empathic. I don't know. Interesting thing to think about. I feel like I could go on a tangent there, so I'm probably gonna just like shut down my thoughts on that right now. So Valerie is asking, what is the difference between the angel cards and regular tarot? Well, Valerie, it really depends on what angel deck you're using, because angel cards could be angel themed tarot cards, and in that case, there's probably not going to be too much of a difference. The angel are the tarot inspired angel cards. I can talk, I promise. Are still based off of tarot. So there should still be the same archetypes that you see in tarot, the same suit. So it should still have a suit of wands, or at least something representing the suit of wands, cups, swords, and wands, cups, swords. I'm missing one. I'm a little nervous, not gonna lie. So it should still be based on the suits that you have in tarot. If you are working with oracle cards basically go off and they just kind of do their own thing. So they don't follow the archetypes of tarot. It's going to be more, I want to say, can be more open. So instead of having the five different suits like you have in tarot, they may not have suits at all. So I hope that answers your question. Um, Yeda is asking reverse or saying reverse cards for me are the worst to try and read. I think we're gonna do an episode on tarot pretty soon in the future. What do you guys think? I think tarot would be good. Pentacles, thank you, Candace. Yes, Pentacles is the one that I was missing. So reverse cards, there's actually a few different ways that you can read those, and if you can remember these three different ways, I think it's easier for you. I remember reading that one way to look at reversals is that when you get a reversal, it means that you haven't completed the card prior to that. So, for example, let's say that you're doing a reading and you pull up the Eight of Cups in reverse. The Eight of Cups is coming up in reverse because it means that your client has not finished the archetype of the Seven of Cups. So they haven't moved from that energy into the Eight of Cups energy yet. So it could also mean that they're in transition. So that's one way to view it. And I remember when I first heard that theory, I thought that was really interesting. And so I started applying that to my readings, and it was fascinating to see how that changed the interpretation of the reading itself. But it was also very interesting to see how the cards were spot on and how accurate they were when I kind of made it my intention, at least for a short while, to read the reversals in that way. So it could mean, so again, it could mean that that the person you're reading for is in transition from one card to the other, and they haven't completed the card before that. So it would be the same thing. Like if you get the Two of Cups in reverse, it means that your client is still stuck on the Ace of Cups. And Ace of Cups is what? Ace of Cups would be a new beginning, right? It's a new beginning of some type of emotional overflow. Usually it's a pretty positive card, but it's also the beginning of something that's going to bring you joy, love, fulfillment. It's a very touchy feely card, usually very good, very positive. So that's one way to look at the reversals. The second way is also pretty easy, because that just means that it's the energy of that card, but in reverse. So if I were to pull the Strength card and that were to be in reverse, that would tell me that the person I'm reading for isn't feeling very confident, isn't feeling very courageous when it comes to whatever they're asking about. They're probably feeling weak, they're feeling depleted. If you have the Three of Swords in reverse, the Three of Swords is a card that's about heartbreak. It can be about betrayal, but usually, like, I think the Three of Swords is just about the saddest card in the deck. Like, almost every time I turn that over, like, I just instantly feel bad for whoever I'm reading for, because it's about that heartbreak that cuts you to your core. And for those of you who have experienced that type of heartbreak, you know how hard it is to maneuver through that. And when that card comes up in reverse and you're reading reversals as if they mean the opposite of that card when it's right side up, then that could be a good thing. It could mean that the person you're reading for is getting over their heartbreak, or they've already gotten over it. So that's a very positive way to look at it as well. The third way to look at it means that a person has a block in that area. So if someone pulls the Magician card and that's in reverse, that could mean that this person has an enormous block when it comes to working their own magic, when it comes to using the tools and the elements to manifest and create what they desire. They're feeling blocked there. So it doesn't mean that they're necessarily in an energy of that card. It means that they almost can't get in the energy of that card because there's a block there. So those are the three different ways that you can work with reversals. So for me, when I'm doing a reading for someone and a reversal comes up, I am constantly moving between those three different ways of reading them, because Tarot has a way of talking to you. And when you are intuitive, you'll know which of those three different formulas to go with. So if you are looking at your cards and there's a reversal in there, and you think to yourself, well, I don't really feel intuitively that this card is saying that my client is experiencing the opposite of this, and she is experiencing somewhat of a block, I'm going to look at what the card is before that, because I think that's the energy that she's in. I think she's migrating. I think she's transitioning. So you can be very open to it and just allow the cards to speak to you and allow the reversal to be different with every reading. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then you can commit to one way of reading the reversals. And the cards know, your subconscious mind knows, the universe knows, the spirit guides and angels that you work with, they understand how you read. They know your tarot language. There's the love languages and there's the tarot languages. And so if you make a commitment that this is the one way that you are going to read reversals, then it will always be that way for you. Your guides and your angels know how you read tarot. Your spirit guides, deceased loved ones on the other side, know how you read tarot. So whenever they allow a reversal to come up, they're going to know how you read them. So that is in fact going to be the correct interpretation. So I hope that makes sense. Um, and so Michael's asking, is the reading not complete if you don't read reversals? If you don't read reversals, again, your spirit team knows that, your subconscious mind knows that, the archetypes that live in tarot, the tarot deck itself knows that. So I wouldn't say it's incomplete. If you are someone who doesn't like to read tarot in reverse, you just turn the reversals over. You just turn them over and you read the cards that way. In fact, Deborah Blake, who's one of my favorite authors of witchy books and tarot books, she doesn't read reversals. She doesn't care for them. So she mentions that in the book that she wrote for the Everyday Witch Tarot, which is one of the cutest tarot decks ever. I love that one. So if you're on the market for a new tarot deck and you want one that's like cute and whimsical, that is the one to that's definitely the one to get. So that's a very fun book. But Deborah has been reading tarot for decades and she doesn't do reversals. So you do not have to feel pressure to read reversals if that's something that you're not interested in, if that's something you're uncomfortable with. All right. So let me see. Julie says tarot led me to massage. Massage led me to medical intuition. Oh, that's amazing, Julie. Yeah, it's really fascinating how tarot can open different doors for you. So speaking of which, it was actually through tarot that my mediumship abilities had opened up. If it hadn't been for tarot, I'm sure my mediumship abilities would have happened at some point. They would have opened at some point, but I don't know what the catalyst would have been. And it probably would have been a little later in life, actually. So, what ended up happening there was as I graduated basically from the tarot workshop I was doing, I ended up becoming a tarot card reader for a different online site. So it wasn't a psychic site or anything like that. It was basically a website where you could hire different professionals to do different things. And I was like, hey, let me see if I can do something with this. Let me see if people will hire me to read tarot for them. And they did. And what was fascinating was as I started reading tarot for these different people, different spirits started to come through. And at first, I basically thought it was just a fluke because I'm not a medium. Like, I don't know how that works, right? So I would be reading tarot for different people, and yeah, their loved ones from the other side would come through. And it was a little confusing at first because it's not like I saw them with my physical eyes. These spirits from the other side were not physically in front of me, they were in my mind's eye, but their presence that I was feeling intuitively was very strong. And I say intuitively, but the truth is, like, there is a physical sensation that I felt. When you feel psychic impressions physically, they can feel like pressure in a certain part of the body. You can notice that the pressure of the room changes. So something about the air, the temperature feels different. You can get tingly sensations, you can get warm sensations. And so I was actually getting physical sensations when spirits would come into the room. But again, I didn't really know much about mediumship, so I didn't understand what was happening when that was taking place. So it was a fascinating and interesting experience. I wouldn't say it was terrifying. It definitely wasn't scary. It was just interesting. I was like, well, I guess we're trying something new here. So when spirits would come through, I'd see them in my mind's eye, and depending on how strong the presence of that spirit was, I would pause the reading and say, I just want to take a moment to ask you if you have a father figure on the other side, a mother figure on the other side, whoever it was. And they'd say yes or no. Usually it was a yes. And I would say, okay, because I have your cousin here, or whoever it was, and they're telling me that, and then I would go off and give them a message. And most people were super impressed and very excited. They're like, oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting that today. And I'm like, yeah, me neither, sister. Let me tell you, I wasn't expecting that today either. And I'm the psychic one. What does that say about me? So it was really fun though, because people would come to me for tarot readings and they would end up getting mediumship readings. And I do recall one time where I was reading for this one woman and her father came through, and his presence was very strong. And he had a presence that you could not ignore. Like he took up the whole room type of thing. And he felt like he was kind of gruff and maybe not the nicest person. And so as I was reading for her, I asked her, do you have a father figure on the other side? And she was just like, yes. That was it. Yes. I was like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Well, is this your actual father on the other side?" She said, "Yep." And I was like, "Okay, well, he's here and he's wanting to talk to you. Did you want to?" Basically, I asked her if she wanted to make that connection, and she was like, "Nope, it's fine." She wanted nothing to do with him. So I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. And I didn't push, I didn't dive into it. I respected her wishes and we went on with the tarot reading. But that was the first time that I had ever had a spirit come through. And the person I was reading for was just like, absolutely not. This is not happening today. I do not want to talk to that person. So it's like, all right, message received. You don't have to. And so we didn't. We did not talk to him. And the one of the most memorable readings that happened during that time, and this is actually the one that that verified to me that I was in fact a mediumship. This was not a fluke. Was when I was doing a reading for a wonderful, cheerful woman. She was so fun to read for. And these two male figures came in, and they were college age. One of them was wearing a hoodie. One of them looked like kind of a football jock. And the one who was wearing a hoodie was really upset and he was crying and he had his head down. He wouldn't show his face. And the one that looked like a football jock had his arm around the person who had the hoodie on, had his arm around his friend and was saying, it's okay, no one's mad at you, like it's fine." So I told the woman that I was reading for who had come through and what was going on, and she was like, oh my gosh, she's like, I know exactly who that is. And so she went on to tell me how when she was in college she had two buddies, two male friends, who had gotten into a car accident and they had passed away, they had died in that accident. And the young man who was wearing the hoodie was the one responsible for the accident. So that's why he was coming through with so much remorse and so much regret. And if I remember correctly, the person in the other car, I can't remember if the person in the other car, was there another car? Actually, I think I'm getting this confused with another reading. I've done so many readings at this point. I was going to say the person in the other car got really messed up, but I believe that this was actually a one car accident. So yeah, I'm getting a couple readings confused. That happens after doing this for over a decade. So she knew exactly who it was. She verified all that information for me. And she was just so surprised and so shocked and so happy actually that they had come through, because she had wanted to know that they were okay. And so she told them, well, she's like, this happened so many years ago. She's like, every no one was ever mad at him, like he's forgiven, no one's mad at him. And she's like, but tell him it's really great to hear from him, so when she basically offered that forgiveness and told him like no one was mad at him, like everything's okay, his energy instantly lifted. He felt so much lighter. And then he finally lifted his face so I could see it, removed the hood from his head, and he had a big, beautiful, handsome smile on his face. And I think that's when I knew that there was something more to this. And it was a really wonderful experience. And it was after that that more even more spirit started to come through. And I think it was at that point that I really began to open up and accept my fate. Accept what was happening. But that was the first time I had really seen the transformative healing power of a psychic mediumship reading, not just for a person who's here in our physical realm, but to see the healing and transformation that took place for a spirit on the other side was transformative for me. And knowing that mediumship can heal so many people in so many different dimensions is incredible. It's so amazing. And I just love knowing that there are other psychic mediums out there who are focused on the healing aspect of readings as well. Because, you do get those mediums out there, and you get different psychics who are out there, and they're about the fame and the money and different things. In fact, I had a conversation with someone earlier today, and she had gone to a workshop hosted by a very famous psychic medium. And she had told me that when she went to this workshop, that the medium just kept upselling and pushing other products, and she was just like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? And so it can be disheartening when you run into that. But when you meet those mediums who are, there are professional mediums out there. Obviously, I'm one of them. And mediums have to charge because we have to pay bills like everyone else does. But there's obviously a difference between those who are charging and running their businesses and needing to pay their bills versus those who are trying to become rich off of you. So there's a little bit of a difference there. So it's always really comforting to me and exciting to me when I meet psychics and mediums who are in this work for the right reasons. And one of the things that was really hard for me to come to terms with as a medium was the fact that not everyone who is in this work has good intentions. Not everyone who's in this work wants to help other people. They're in it for glory, they're in it for fame, they're in it for whatever they're in it for, but they may cross the line on ethics, and they may not be walking into this with the best intentions. So my commitment to you that I am making right here is that I will do my best to vet every person who is on this show, because I'm not interested in speaking to people who are gifted. I'm interested in speaking to people who are gifted and who walk a path of integrity. And so I will do my best to bring those type of people onto the show. In fact, next week we will be interviewing Matthew Stapley, and I can definitely give him my seal of approval. Definitely excited to have him on the show. And I believe that the work that we do is so important. It is so important. I believe it is holy. I believe it is sacred. I believe it is life changing. And I believe it is not to be taken lightly. And I don't know about you, but this path is not just one that calls you, but it is one that demands some type of a sacrifice. And when I talk about sacrifice, I mean that there are things that you'll have to give up when you follow this journey. I mean, if you are following it with your whole heart, if you are diving in to this spiritual lifestyle with all of your being, with your whole heart, then you'll find that you lose friends along the way. You'll find that certain things that used to appeal to you don't appeal to you anymore. I've always been sensitive, so I was never really good with shows that had a tremendous amount of violence. Like Game of Thrones was really hard for me to watch. And I obviously, when that show was hot, I knew a lot of people who loved that show. And I eventually watched it. I started to watch it with a friend of mine, and just the violence was so off-putting for me. So I continued to watch it because, I mean, let's be honest, the cliffhangers on that show, epic, right? The cliffhangers always had you going, well, wait, like I have to know what happens next. So somehow they kept tricking me into watching the next episode, even though it was a show like I wasn't even sure I liked. Um, the third season I liked, but like for the most part, I probably could have gone without watching that show. In fact, I actually think it played a role in the depression that I felt during that time, because it was just that show is just too many heavy dark energies, at least for me when I watch it. But you'll find that when you start to follow a spiritual path, when you start to open up to become more loving, more compassionate, more light and love, whatever your calling is, you'll find that you have a lower tolerance for things like that. You'll have a lower tolerance for fake violence, even, and obviously the violence that we see on TV shows, it's not real, right? But it looks real, so depending on what show you're watching, and it can still be off-putting for you because you know that people have a strong urge to repeat what they see. People are heavily influenced by what they see on TV and what they hear on the radio, even if they think that they're immune to it. People almost always mimic what they see and what they hear. And the truth is, we become what we hang around the most. So, whatever it is we're allowing into our energetic space and into our mind is what we become in one way or another. So, we always want to be mindful of the songs we're listening to, the lyrics to the songs, really, the type of programming we're watching, because we always want to be mindful of how that's affecting us. And so yeah, you'll find that there's certain books, there's certain TV shows and movies that you just can't be around anymore. There's certain people that you won't be able to tolerate anymore. There's activities like, maybe concerts or going to amusement parks, things that aren't really going to fill your soul anymore. They're not going to be fun to you anymore. And so you'll find that not only did the dynamics of your life change, but your personality begins to change as well. And you might start to find that there's certain things that you become less patient and less tolerant towards. And that can feel as if well, for me, I sometimes feel as if I'm being hypocritical when I'm not able to stay peaceful in a situation. So for example, if I'm arguing with someone and I'm arguing about something I'm very passionate about or I believe strongly in, like I'll get to the point where I'm angry, right? Because I still have all access to all those emotions. I'm not perfect. So I'll get angry, and maybe I'll say something I shouldn't say, or just, in the heat of the moment, we sometimes don't always have the most control over ourselves. And so after that'll happen, I'll think about it and I'll get really upset with how I behaved. And then I start to think, oh my God, am I a hypocrite? Like I didn't handle myself very well in that situation. But I think that a lot of times what happens is that our anger just gets triggered by different things. So things that we may have had more tolerance for, we just won't anymore. So the things that you get angry over, the things that you feel passionate over will change. And I think that when you do feel guilty, over the way that you responded or reacted to something afterwards, I think that that can also be a sign of spiritual growth, because guilt means that you have remorse for something you did. And that's a good thing. If you are a narcissist or sociopathic, you wouldn't care, right? You'd be like, yeah, I told that person once what, and I don't care. And I would do it again. That's just, it's probably not the best attitude to have. But we also have to remember that regardless of what spiritual path we follow, we're all human. We're still going to make mistakes. There's still going to be situations that we wander into or that we are invited into that are so new to us that we don't know how to behave. There's still going to be different situations that trigger us because they're poking at an old wound or insecurity. And so I think one of the things we always have to be mindful of is having a high level of self compassion for ourselves and patience for ourselves when we mess up on the spiritual journey. Because the truth is that when other people know that you're on a spiritual journey, they will start to put some very high standards on you, and they might start to put expectations on you that aren't very fair. So when you lose your cool or when you predict something incorrectly, like maybe you got the most of the prediction right but you missed the date, or you got a name wrong, they'll start doing the whole, well, if you're so spiritual, well, if you're so psychic, well, if you're so great. And that can really cause us to feel crummy, right? That can cause us to feel really bad. And so we have to have a decent level of self compassion for ourselves, and we need to give ourselves room to make mistakes, because mistakes are normal, mistakes are human. And even though we may have a deep desire for that which is spiritual, at the end of the day, we are here to have a physical experience. We came to earth so we could have that 3D 4D experience, right? So I think that when we practice these different spiritual um not ethics, spiritual, well, those two core values, they start with us, right? You have to be loving to yourself. You have to be patient with yourself. You have to be loving and forgiving of yourself before you can really offer that same amount of understanding to others. So I think self compassion and self forgiveness and self love are also important to this journey. So Kristen's asking, how long did it take you to learn how to read cards? Honestly, Kristen, I don't remember how long it was, but it honestly was probably just a matter of days. The cards that tripped me up the most were the court cards. So, like King of Cups, Queen of Cups, King of Wands, Knight of Wands, those were the ones that tripped me up the most. But when it came to the major arcana, and the minor arcana minus the court cards, I learned those pretty quickly. And I think most people can. Actually, I think most people can read those pretty quickly, especially if they happen to be intuitive. So the thing to remember when it comes to the court cards that'll help you to read them fairly easy or easier is to really dive into the meaning of each suit. And that's actually pretty easy to remember. So if you remember, cups are water, cups are emotions, cups are loving, patient, self-sacrificing compassion. Cups are all about they're all about those feel good feels, right? Well, most of the cards anyway. It's mostly a pretty happy suit, I believe, except for maybe the Five of Cups and the Four of Cups. Those are pretty depressing. But other than that, they're mostly good. So when you can just remember that those cards are about emotions and sensitivity and psychic abilities and that sort of a thing, then when you start to read your court cards, if you get the Queen of Cups, you can be like, oh, okay, this represents a woman who's very intuitive, she's very emotional, she's probably, or she's got a high EQ, she has high emotional intelligence, she's probably very intuitive. When you know the meaning of the suits, it becomes easier to personify each of the court cards. And that is something that took me a little while to learn. But outside of that, I learned how to read tarot within days. And I think that the deck that I use, the Wizard's Tarot, even though I was supposed to be using the Rider Waite, the Wizard's Tarot that I had just made it so easy. The images were just so easy. It was clear cut, cut and dry, crystal clear. So because of the images on each of the cards, I was able to read it pretty quickly, which is very cool. So let's see. Marge is saying, I think if the intention is that of love and healing and good intention, it's okay to not have it all right. So true. Self compassion is so important. Yeah. And the truth is, like, we're never going to have everything right. We're never going to get it all right while we're here having this earthly experience. And I think that's part of the point too. And I don't think we're supposed to get everything right, because if we were to come down here and be completely perfect, then what would we learn? There'd be nothing to learn. There'd be no new experience. Now, I don't particularly like the feeling of being wrong. I don't particularly like the feeling of having hurt someone that I loved, and the guilt and the remorse and all that comes afterwards. I don't like those feelings or situations at all, but I can say that I've learned from them. And I think most people have, right? So whenever we go through something difficult, we may never look back at that situation and say, oh, I'm so glad that XYZ happened. We can say, that was a really horrible experience, but I'm grateful that I at least learned this out of it. And I believe the reason that we come here is mastery. I believe that we all come here to learn things and to better ourselves. So Beth is saying, cards work well with me since it is hard for me to keep attention, and the images help bring me back. Yeah, I think that cards are wonderful for people whose minds maybe wander a little too much, or for people who have a hard time quieting their mind. Like, I have a friend who's ADHD, and she loves working with her tarot cards because it really helps her to focus in and stay focused on different things that she wants to manifest. And even when she does readings, because she's really intuitive too, and so it helps her to stay on point as well. And that's one of the things that I love about tarot too, is tarot has this way of filling in the gaps. And what I mean by that is, sometimes as a psychic and as someone who's very intuitive, you'll put your feelers out there and you will get information. So if I was reading for someone and I was doing it purely intuitive, there's certain things that I'm going to pick up on, and a story starts to form. But there might be holes in the story. There's gaps there. And so what I find is that tarot is brilliant at filling in the gaps and showing you the parts that you're missing. So for example, you might be tuning into someone and you think to yourself, okay, well, I do see that this person's in a relationship. There is tension between her and um, the man that she's in a relationship with. I see him crying. I see him being really upset, but I can't figure out why that is. So maybe you turn to tarot and you find out that she betrayed him. Maybe she lied to him about the finances. She lied to him about something, and he feels very, very betrayed. And so tarot has this way of filling in those gaps for you. And that's one of the reasons I absolutely love working with tarot, is because it helps so much to put the missing pieces together. All right, there's someone here saying that they can't hear me. Can the rest of you guys hear me? If so, just put a yes in the comment. Because everything seems to be fine on my end, at least so far. So can you guys hear me? Okay, good. So I'm not just here talking to myself. All right, fantastic. So, so thank you guys all for showing up today. And for those of you who are listening to me through the UPRN network, I do also want to invite you to check out my Guiding Echoes YouTube channel. It is through that channel that I offer different videos on psychic development. And of course, psychic development is a broad range. So I might have different videos that have affirmations that you can listen to that are on repeat. You can listen to those at night so that they help you to feel more confident as a psychic. I've done different videos like 9 signs that you are a psychic medium. Speaking of which, the show following this one, Discover Paranormal, the crew over there is going to be doing a topic called Are You Psychic? So you want to be sure that you check that out. For those of you who are watching this broadcast or listening to it on my YouTube channel or on my Facebook page at Guiding Echoes, then you'll want to head on over to International Radio Network and check out the Discover Paranormal and Chasing Prophecy shows, because those guys are fantastic. Those crews are amazing, and they have some really interesting topics tonight. In fact, Chasing Prophecy is going to be talking about the Mandela effect. And that's fascinating to me because Michael Jenks and I were just discussing that. I think it was last week. He was like, "Hey, Nicole, have you heard of the Mandela effect?" I'm like, "Yes, I have." And what was weird about that was later that day, my friend Tammy and I started talking about the Mandela effect. So the Mandela effect is it was one of those things where it was all you heard about in paranormal communities and spiritual communities for a while, in UFO communities. I don't think I've said the word communities enough over the last like 5 seconds. Let me say it some more, communities. But so it was a topic that was being discussed in all of these different circles. And all of a sudden, it kind of faded away, and now we're hearing about it again. So now we're back into this thing where everyone's experiencing the Mandela effect. And I don't know what the guys at Chasing Prophecy are going to say about it, but I believe what's happening is I believe that we're starting to see different realities cross over. In fact, my friend Tammy, who's also a very gifted psychic, her and I were talking about that recently, where there just feels like there's two different timelines that are colliding with each other. And so we have these two different realities starting to almost compete with each other on this earth, on this planet that we live in. And so it's really fascinating to be a part of, but I believe it's also one of the reasons why so many of us are feeling exhausted. I think a lot of us are feeling it. And it's not just because of all the stuff that we've been through over the last 2 years. It's not just because of that trauma. It's because our energies are being pulled, and we are existing in two different places at the same time. And so it makes sense as to why we would feel that, why we would be a little tired, why we would feel our energy being pulled in different ways. So Beth says stuff does feel a lot like it is wearing thin on everything. Yes. Oh man, it does. I hear you, sister. It absolutely does. Michelle saying, "Oh my God, yes, very heavy energies." Yep. Auntie Nicole, let's see, Auntie Coco. Well, Nicole does give readings and help with spirit stuff. Yes, I do. Absolutely. Tammy, do you still have your original deck? Tammy, I do. But you know what? I actually went through a short scare for a while where I couldn't find it anywhere. I was convinced that I had accidentally given it to Goodwill. And years later, years after I'd given up finding that deck, I had just kind of grieved and mourned the loss of it. It showed up in a box that I'd completely forgotten about. And that was the day that my faith in God was renewed. But yes, I do thankfully still have that original deck. Betsy, how can I get a reading from you? Betsy, there's two ways. You can go to my website at guidingechoes.com, or if you want to wait until Friday, on Friday evenings on my Guiding Echoes YouTube channel, I do offer free readings. Not everyone who shows up gets one, but basically I just open up my energy to any spirits that want to come through, any messages that want to come through. And so that's kind of my way of giving back to my community, because I know that not everyone can afford readings. And so group readings are going to be back on the menu very, very soon, probably within 4 weeks. So I am doing my best to cater to you guys and help you guys on whatever budget you're in, because I know readings are not, when you go to a professional reader, they're not cheap. I don't want to say they're expensive, but it's just, with inflation and everything going on right now, things are just tough. And so I'm doing my best to meet you guys where you are, and I'm trying to find that line between charging for readings and also making myself available so that I can get those messages to those of you who aren't in a position to be able to afford a reading. So that said, yeah, check out my YouTube channel, Guiding Echoes, on Friday evening at I think it's 6 p.m. Pacific. This time it might be 7. I don't remember what time I scheduled that for. I go back and forth because I know that on the East Coast, if I do 7 p.m. Pacific time, that means it's 10 p.m. Eastern. And then my Eastern peeps are like, Nicole, girl, I love you, but that's too late, chica. And then, of course, the 6 p.m. here on Pacific Coast, they're just getting out of work and they're just getting home. And they're like, girl, I love you, but I got to spend time with my fam. So I'm going back and forth, rotating between those two times because I'm a people pleaser. I'm just going to admit it. I have no qualms about it. So I am doing my best to help you guys as much as I can. But yes, you can visit my website at guidingechoes.com if you'd like to order a reading with me. So let's see. Laura, anything with the new moon coming? Well, there's always something coming with the new moon, huh? Let's see, Melissa. Thank you for what you do. You are amazing. Oh, thank you, Melissa. Matthew Stapley recommended you. You are both amazing. Matthew Stapley, he's the best, and he's also going to be our guest next week. So I'm super excited for that. So, to be honest, I don't really follow new moons and full moons. That's not entirely my jam, but I do know that with the new moons, that's when you want to set your intentions and start allowing things to manifest from there. So if there's anything that you want to manifest, that you want to call into your life, then new moon is the time to do that. But I actually did pull some tarot cards for us so we can see the energies for the week. You guys want to hear that before I leave you and make time for Discover Paranormal? I'm so excited for their show tonight. They're going to be discussing, are you psychic? I don't know. Maybe I am. I'll have to watch their show to find out. So, so the cards that I have for you this week, so this is for the collective, for this week is Strength, the Magician, and then we have the Knight of Cups in reverse. So what that tells me is that whatever it is that you're working on manifesting, there's a lot of energy behind it this week. So you want to get very clear about your intentions. What is it that you want to pull into your reality? And remember what I was saying earlier, we have two realities, two different timelines kind of at war with each other right now. We have two different timelines that are trying to infiltrate this reality right now. So what does that mean for us? It means that we have a choice. We get to choose what timeline we want to go into, which one we want to live into. So why not choose the better one? So really think about what it is you want to manifest. Now, the Knight of Cups in reverse tells me that as we're working on these manifestations, as we are calling in the things that we want, we may have to take actions that we don't necessarily love. So what that means is that if I want my car to be sparkling, clean, and beautiful, that's a great intention. It can definitely happen. But it also means that I have to actually wash the car. I have to do some work. I don't love it, right? So think about what it is that you are calling in and ask yourself, what actions have you been avoiding because you don't love them? There is this idea that we have to be in a state of flow all the time to manifest what we want. And if we take that a little too literally, a little too seriously, then we might avoid doing the things we don't want to do. And those things could be necessary. So I don't want you to sit there and just do all the things that you hate. For example, if you hate Brussels sprouts and you're trying to lose weight, I don't want you to just sit there and eat a big old bucket of Brussels sprouts. That's not healthy for anybody. That's not good for anybody, right? But you may want to add greens to your meals, right? Even if you don't love them, you have to add them because it's good for you. It helps your digestive system. We're not going to go into all that. You guys know how to eat healthy. You guys know how to do that. This is a brilliant group that's listening right now. So think about that. Just think about what it is that you've been avoiding that can really help to propel you forward in what it is that you desire. So again, Manifesting energy is very strong this week. Write down your wishes, write down your desires. If you like to perform rituals, then ritual your little heart out. Make sure that you do that ritual because it is going to add strength and power to what it is that you want to create. So, my friends, time is up. Again, there's a great lineup today. Following this show is Discover Paranormal. After that, we've got Chasing Prophecy. Discover Paranormal is going to be talking about Are You Psychic? Chasing Prophecy is all about the Mandela effect. It is going to be wonderful. So stay tuned for those fantastic shows. Thank you for joining me today. And regardless of what platform you're watching this on, please remember to subscribe, give it a like, leave a comment because it really helps this network out. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I will see you next week with my guest, Matthew Stapley. I know he's going to be a great guest, and I know it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'll see you then. Take care. Bye bye.